And I know this is a terribly busy slide, but it turns out to be really, really simple. What they've done here, okay, in this experiment is they've taken cells from different tumors from dogs. Right? This is from venereal disease, venereal cancers from dogs from all over the world. This is, to me, this is just amazing, amazing finding that they did. So they have these little letters up here represent different tumors from different dogs. Obviously, they have different countries: Italy, India, Kenya. This is basically the same figure down here from Turkey, Spain, USA, Brazil, and Italy again. So they take these samples from these different dogs, they get the DNA out, and then they ask what is the genetic profile of these cells. And is it different from tumor to tumor, from country to country, or is it going to be the same? So this is basically what they're doing is what you see on TV with crime scene investigation. How do they tell whether somebody is criminal? Well, they run a DNA profile. They ask what kind of DNA fragments are present in an individual, and do they match the sample? And that's basically all that they're doing here. And that's all that they've done over here. These are just DNA markers. They're just saying, are these pieces of DNA present within the tumors, or are they absent? This down here is just a control that they've run saying, okay, we can run our assay on all these samples, and we'll get at least a positive result for this piece of DNA. So we know our assay works for everything. And basically, this slide is highly repetitive. What they've done here is they've taken normal tissue, so they take non-cancerous tissue from a dog, they take the tumor tissue from the dog, and they look to see whether or not they have these different pieces of DNA. And in every case, right, what they're looking at, these different pieces, right, are absent in the normal tissue, and they're present in the tumor tissue. And that's for this dog, this dog, this dog, this dog. It's for this country, it's for this country, it's for this country. Right? What it means is that this particular cell, because it has this genetic profile, these pieces of DNA are present, it means that this cell from dog M from Kenya that had this tumor is really the same cell that's over here in India. It's the same cell that's in Italy, Turkey, Spain, United States, Brazil, Italy. This cell has been passed around worldwide. Okay? It is an infectious tumor that is based upon passing a cell from animal to animal. Now, a lot of you guys are in biomedical science, and you understand that you cannot transplant things from an individual to an individual, right? Because you're going to get rejection. Right. Well, what this cell has done very craftily, I guess, or very selectively, is it's lost some of the proteins on its surface so that it cannot be recognized by an immune system that it didn't come from. Okay. So that's the way it avoids immune surveillance in all these different animals. Normally, if it was a cell that you tried to take from L and you put it into M, M dog would reject it. But this cell has lost that marker that it needs to be rejected, and that's why it gets passed on. There's another example of this. There's only about 2 examples that I'm aware of. And this actually is causing real havoc with this critter, the Tasmanian devil, down in, outside of Australia, a little island off Australia. They have these little, I'm sure you've all heard of the Tasmanian devil. And actually, these guys are actually threatened by this kind of cancer. There's a distinct possibility that they will go extinct, right, because of this tumor being passed around from animals. And it's the same concept. There is a cell that is being passed on from one Tasmanian devil to another Tasmanian devil, and in doing so, it kills them. Now, this is not a venereal tumor. In this case, it's an oral craniofacial tumor. And how do they pass it on? Well, these guys are pretty nasty, right? They come upon some piece of meat in the forest, and they begin to fight, and they bite each other, and they're passing it on because they're chewing on each other. Now, this is the prerequisite cancer slide. Ooh, gross. And this is what they look like, right? They get these huge tumors in their oral craniofacial region. And obviously, this is so deforming that at this point, this animal will not, because it simply cannot eat. Right? Oop. Did I go too far? Nope. So, can cancer be caused? We know it's infectious agents. Can it be caused by other things in our environment? And the answer is yes. It's influenced greatly by what we visualize in our environment. Remember the fact that as you get older in the West, your risk of cancer grows, right? And the number of tumors that we see in people are going to grow. It indicates that as we age or gone through life, we will insult our DNA in our body somehow so that we will change our genetic constitutions and we gain an increased risk of cancer, right? So there's a lot of examples of this where you change geographical location, you change your cancer rate, right? Indicating that there's something in the environment, maybe something cultural, right? Maybe there's something in the environment that's changing your a risk for certain types of cancer, right? So cancer rates actually differ between locations. Just a little example here. The skin cancer is extremely high in Australia. It's extremely low, relatively low in Japan. Right? Well, why is that? Well, we have a population in Australia that's fair-skinned. There's a bright sun out most of the times of the year. Their cultural practices is to go out and get a tan. Right? In Japan, yeah, they see enough sun, but their cultural practices is not to go out and get a tan. So their skin cancer rate is low. Right? Stomach cancer is another example. In Japan, it's quite high. Kuwait, it's quite low. Well, why is that? Well, it's because in Japan, the cultural practice is to eat a lot of smoked foods. And smoked foods contain some chemical compounds that wind up being carcinogens. They damage your DNA, and therefore you have an increased risk of stomach cancer. So there's all sorts of things. There's all sorts of interesting studies that point this out. And this is just one of them, where they're looking at cancer rates in different individuals, different people from different ancestries, and what happens to those cancer rates when they immigrate to a different country. Okay? So the big deal here is that these two little bars in each figure indicate the cancer rates for individuals in Osaka, Japan. Okay? These last three bars indicate the cancer rates, right, for individuals that are in the United States, in particular Hawaii, because it's a popular place for Japanese people to immigrate to. So the big deal here is, yeah, there's this huge difference between, excuse me, huge difference in cancer rates for some of these different types of cancer. And in fact, these rates change when people immigrate. So here are Japanese men who have immigrated, right, to Japan, to Japanese men who immigrated to Hawaii, right? Have an increased rate of prostate cancer. Very low in Osaka, very high, relatively high in Hawaii. Okay. So just by immigrating, just by changing something that's not really terribly understood, right, they've increased the risk of prostate cancer. Right? Maybe it's diet. I don't think anybody really understands. The fact is it's occurring. Something in the environment is changing their risk for this particular type of cancer. They haven't changed their ancestry. They've just changed where they're living, possibly what they're doing. You can see here, colon cancer was low in 1970-71 in Osaka, Japan. These guys that immigrated to Hawaii increased. Who knows exactly why? Maybe it's because they changed their diet. You can see here with stomach cancer, the reverse is true. High in Osaka, low in Hawaii. Again, it's probably because of the propensity to eat smoked fish.